On this week's episode, we talk about the infamous Blue Diamond Affair, one of Bangkok's most enduring mysteries.
So if you're a fan of spy novels and diplomatic shenanigans, you'll get a kick out of this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 with a friend who left me here alone, confused, and broke. And hey, I'm married now, but the other two are still in play.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 17 years ago, fell in love with taxis that refused to take me where I want to go. I just can't get enough of it, and so I've never left.
That's funny. All right, before we get started, we want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, a guy by the name of David Lukens, who supports us at the T-shirt level.
Wow.
Stick around after we're done talking about the Blue Diamond Affair to hear why I believe that David is actually often mistaken for a Thai ghost.
Well,
creepy
spooky
stuff. Yeah. And you can learn more about becoming a patron on our website. And of course, one of the cool things our patrons get is an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. We just finished recording this week's bonus show, and we chatted about Thai taxis. Again, seems to come up a lot on the show. And we even went over a few really good ideas from Ed on how to fix the frustrating taxi system that Bangkokians have to deal with. Really, they were some great ideas, man. I'm impressed.
Thanks. But I have one thing to correct there. You said Bangkokian. I-A-N. I prefer the term Bangkoker.
Bangkoker?
It's another thing that I really want to change about Thailand. There's three things I want to change. I want to change the taxi system.
Yeah.
I want to change the Thai flag back to the old flag of Siam that had the elephant.
Uh-huh.
And I want to change Bangkokian to Bangkoker. I think Bangkoker is just cooler.
That's the demonym. It's called a demonym when you like identify like a population of something. No,
Oh,
I
excellent.
disagree. I like Bangkokian.
Oh, really? We'll have to have a whole other show on this. Maybe we'll let our listeners vote. Do you prefer Bangkokian or Bangkoker? We'll do it on another show.
Bangkoker sounds like a bar at Cowboy. Anyway,
Because I've got a lot of reasons why Bangkoker is better, but I don't want to go off on that tangent right now.
all right.
So tonight's show is actually the second episode in a new series on Bangkok's lesser-known people, places, and events from history. Which is a really fun thing to do because, we talk so much about current affairs and things like this, but of course, Thai history is fascinating. So what Greg and I do is we just pick a lesser-known affair from Thai history and we research it and bring it to you, our patrons. But we need a little bit of a disclaimer here. Neither Greg nor I are historians. We're not investigative reporters. We don't have any firsthand knowledge of events we talk about. We can't say 100% whether they're true or not. We just kind of are repeating what we have read in kind of public, open, online sources, stuff that is available in the newspapers. So if the newspapers got it right, then we will get it right in this show.
Yeah, it's all about the research. It's all about the research, baby. But yeah, it's, we weren't there, but it's fun to read up on these things and sort of build a story from the ground up and report it. So anyway, before we start this show, Ed, let me ask you a question. Do you know the difference between an ambassador and a charge d'affaires?
I believe it's charge d'affaires, and I happen to know this because I just met the charge d'affaires who runs the U.S. Embassy. Currently, we don't have an ambassador. So a charge d'affaires is kind of like a diplomat in charge of the day-to-day operation of an embassy. The ambassador is one step above, like the formal political envoy. But right now, the U.S. currently does not have an ambassador, so the charge d'affaires is running the show.
Well, yeah, exactly. So the charge d'affaires is sort of like one step below the ambassador. Talking about that, it might not sound too big of a deal that relations between Thailand and Saudi Arabia are only at the charge d'affaires level, until you learn that from 1966 to 1989, each country did have a full ambassador in the other. But all of that changed when a Thai handyman working in Saudi Arabia decided to help himself to a few handfuls of jewels setting off a full-blown diplomatic incident that included blackmail, kidnapping, black magic, and murder in an episode known as the infamous Blue Diamond Affair.
Okay, so basically what we're going to talk about tonight is a diplomatic spat between Saudi Arabia and Thailand. Is that the story?
Yeah, and it's I'm going to sort of go through it here and basically tell the important points of the story, and we can sort of comment on it as we go. But this is kind of one of those stories that not everyone knows about, and if you do know about it, it's something that you maybe heard from a friend of a friend or something like that. It's a really interesting, potentially sensitive story. So we urge people, that we're not going to cover every single detail of the thing. So if you're interested, go out there and do some research. There's a lot of stuff online about it. But the way it started was this. In 1989, a guy by the name of Kriangkrai Techamon, he was a Thai gardener and janitor at the palace of Prince Faisal bin Fahd in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, if you don't know, Prince Faisal was the grandson of Ibn Saud, the founder of Saudi Arabia. So, he's pretty high up there, on the totem pole.
Yeah.
So this guy, Kriangkrai, the Thai gardener, he climbed a second-story window. He helped himself to about 200 pounds of jewelry worth about $20 million.
Hold on a second. 200 pounds? That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, they figure that he had he carried around some bags and maybe like a vacuum or something like that. So he loaded it up on a cart or something like that, which wasn't unusual.
It was kind of like a go big or go home thing. Like he didn't just grab a handful and put it in his pocket. He went big. He went
That's
big.
right. That's right. He's like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it baller style. So he got about $20 million worth of jewels. Among the booty he picked up was a $2 million sapphire necklace, a necklace made of rare green diamonds, gold watches, rubies the size of chicken eggs, and the famed blue diamond, a 50-carat monster bigger than the Hope diamond. So some serious stuff.
Let me just say this, okay? He blew it right there because although it would be awesome to grab the Hope diamond, that's like the one thing that people are going to be able to track for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, right.
I'm thinking you grab like a handful of diamonds, which is going to be worth a couple of $1 million, but they're going to be much less traceable.
Well, this is the thing that trips up so many criminals, right? It's just pure greed. Why not be happy with $100,000 you steal from a bank, and why do you have to go for the $1 million bag that you can't carry and you're going to be weighed down?
Right. That's exactly right. But stealing a diamond that's 50 carats and bigger than the Hope diamond, I'm just going to say bad idea.
Bad idea. Yeah, I think the whole thing was a bad idea, but that was ultimately a bad idea. So anyway, he got the jewels out of the palace, and he went to the local DHL. He put them in a box and shipped them back to Thailand. And then he got out of Dodge soon after that. So he got back to Thailand with the jewels waiting for him. So as you can imagine, it wasn't really hard to figure out what happened. The Saudis got on the case. They contacted their Thai counterparts. And Kriangkrai was quickly arrested in Thailand. But by the time they got to him, he works fast. So he had already sold the jewels to a jeweler that he knew. So the authorities said, look, we know what happened here. It's not that hard to figure out. Give us the name of the jeweler and you will get a lighter sentence, which is what he did. He was dumb enough to steal the jewels, but he was smart enough to know a good deal when they offered it to him. So he cooperated with the police. He was tried and sentenced to 7 years in jail, but only served 3 because he confessed to the crime and he cooperated with the police.
Again, okay, I'm going to interject here. 3 years is too short of a sentence for that amount of money. Again, I don't know exactly what it would be in the States, but I would say if you pull off like a $20 million jewelry heist in the States and you get caught, even if you cooperate, I'm going to say you're going down for 15 years. It's just my guess.
It depends who you are, man. A lot of people in the States have stolen way more than that, and they've gotten nothing. So,
well, only if you're a banker on Wall Street. That's
right. That's right. Now, surprisingly, despite being the guy who started the whole thing, Kriangkrai doesn't really play a very big role in the rest of the story until the very end. So we're gonna sort of move on without him.
Okay.
So the authorities caught the bad guy. They got the jewels back, and they sent them back to Saudi Arabia. Sorry about all this. Very embarrassing. We're sorry. All your apologies all around. Case closed, right? But according to reports, when the Saudis looked closely at the jewels that were sent back to them, they realized that well over 50% of them were fake.
Okay. So This is our first kind of twist of the story where, as a member of the general public, it's hard to objectively know whether the Saudis were telling the truth. So they're claiming, hey, half of these things are fake. So in theory, they could be running a scam on the Thais. In theory.
Yeah, well, this is what makes this story so fascinating, is because there's so many facets to it, no pun intended, that you, I mean, there's no like hard, fast, solid answers here. So who knows what happened?
Okay, so the Saudis claimed to the Thai authorities that they got half fake gems back.
That's right. So, these things move slowly, diplomatic circles. So a flurry of conversations and back and forth started as they tried to get to the bottom of it, and they ground along for a little while. So after a while, they wanted to move things along a bit. So in February of 1990, the Saudis sent a team of 4 people to Bangkok to track down the missing jewels.
Okay,
they said, go to Bangkok, start asking questions and see if you can find out what's going on here, because they were sold to the jeweler. The cops brought them back, and somewhere along the line, we got fake ones, apparently. So these 4 guys landed in Bangkok. Shortly after they showed up and started asking questions, 3 of them were shot dead, execution style, in downtown Bangkok. Right?
Wow.
Broad daylight.
Wow.
Yeah, something out of a movie.
Right.
And then a few days later, the 4th member of the Saudi team who came over here, he went missing and has never been found. Just disappeared.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. So now this is interesting. So while a lot of people may automatically assume that the Thai police or the mafia or something are involved, there have been suggestions, which the Saudis have agreed are entirely possible, that some of Saudi Arabia's enemies were actually responsible for the murder and disappearance of the Saudi team. So,
okay, so it might have... those murders could have been done by foreigners. It's possible.
Right. And now you're starting to see like there's this starting to be like international spycraft or whatever you call it. So who knows what's going on at this point? There's all kinds of people involved, and no one's sure what happened or who did what and when and stuff like this. So it starts to get very confusing very quickly.
Right.
So with all of this going on, and hard to keep track of, Saudi Arabia decided to apply a little bit of pressure to Thailand. So they reduced the number of Thai workers in the country from 200,000 to around 10,000 people, 10,000 Thais working in Saudi Arabia.
That is a big reduction from 200,000 down to 10,000?
Yeah, it's huge. And it removed billions of baht from the Thai economy, because a lot of the workers, of course, sent the money home from, to their families in Thailand. They also placed a restriction on Thai Muslims, who now had to get special permission from the Saudi government to go to the Hajj in Mecca, which, as you know, is a requirement of all able-bodied Muslims.
Sure.
So the Saudis, they also reduced trade and downgraded their diplomatic relations, which is what we mentioned at the top of the show with the Chargé d'Affaires.
Right. So they removed their ambassador to Thailand.
Yes. And I couldn't actually find any information about what the Thais did with their ambassador, but I assume it was met with equal sort of retaliatory measures.
Right.
So as the investigation wore on, newspapers reported that in 1994, 5 years after the original crime, the jeweler who bought the stolen loot from Kriangkrai said that his wife and 14-year-old son had been kidnapped, and the kidnappers demanded a 2.5 million baht ransom. The jeweler paid it, but his wife and son were found dead in a mysterious car crash soon after that.
So that could be unrelated to the original theft.
Could be, yeah.
It could just be because he was like a jeweler and had money, something like that.
Could be, yeah. Could be. Again, this is another sort of suspicious thing that was never really solidly linked to the main crime or anything like that. It was just sort of like all these sort of swirling events that happened.
Gotcha.
But either way, this guy's poor wife and son died in a car crash. So things are looking pretty bad. Now, after continued pressure and increasingly bad publicity, the policeman in charge of tracking down the jewels, a guy named Chalaw, and some of his accomplices were arrested, with Chalaw being found guilty of masterminding the murders of the jeweler's wife and son.
Okay.
So he was tried and sentenced to death. That year, 1994, he was sentenced to death.
And he was actually executed.
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
So as the 20-year statute of limitations for the murder of the Saudi diplomats got closer, the pressure continued to grow. In 2010, Thai papers reported that 5 police officers had been arrested in the disappearance of the Saudi team. But in 2014, 4 years later, like we said, these things move a little bit slow sometimes, The court ruled that there was insufficient evidence to try the men, and it acquitted all 5. So this caused Saudi Arabia to withdraw its charge d'affaires in protest, although they sent him back a year later because they figured they better have someone here to sort of keep an eye on things.
Apparently, sure.
So after all of this, that is roughly where things stand right now. Diplomatic relations between Saudi Arabia and Thailand are still strained, and I wasn't able to find any information on what happened with the Thai charge d'affaires, but I assume he's still there. In terms of Saudi citizens, actually Saudi citizens still need special permission from the Saudi Foreign Ministry if they want to visit Thailand, as far as I was able to find online. And the number of Thai workers allowed to work in Saudi Arabia is still very restricted, with much of Saudi Arabia's domestic help being sourced from Indonesia and the Philippines.
So, wow. So this is now a kind of a long-term problem. So this is really a 20-year breakdown in relations between Saudi Arabia and Thailand.
Yeah, I mean, the original crime was in 1989. That was 30 years ago. Right?
Wow,
so
incredible. I mean, I guess we are talking about a lot of money. It's not like some small amount of money. And we are talking about the execution in public of not just Saudi citizens, but people sent here by the Saudi government.
Yeah. Like, I can understand why Saudis are pissed off. I can understand why the Thais sort of want to get to the bottom of it. But again, there's statutes of limitations. So, when you're bumping up against stuff like that, I mean, things get complicated.
No doubt.
These international incidents tend to be sometimes embarrassing. They happen all the time with all countries. We're seeing every day now there's a new international incident.
Right.
But this one has dragged on for 30 years and is still not solved. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Now, recently, Kriangkrai, who is still alive and has just been living in northern Thailand, just a regular dude, he said he believes that the missing blue diamond is cursed, and said that its theft has brought a series of calamities on himself and his family. And so to make amends, a few years ago, this is like 3 years ago now, he was ordained as a monk in northern Thailand. He's quoted in a Khalsat article as saying, "I want to be ordained for life to erase the curse of the Saudi diamond and to dedicate my merit to the people ensnared by my karma and those who died in all these past events. I want everyone's forgiveness for what I've done."
Interesting. That's a very Thai thing to do, is to become a monk. To kind of publicly, especially to do it publicly, to kind of apologize and make amends.
Yeah, totally. And the last little button on the end of this thing, at Kriangkrai's ordination ceremony was a special guest, Kun Chalaw, the police officer who had been in charge of the investigation. Although being sentenced to death for the murder of the jeweler's wife and son, he had been quietly released in October 2013 after 20 years when he was 70 years old.
So he wasn't executed?
He wasn't executed. No. I mean, people on death row often aren't. And
right. Maybe he got some kind of pardon, or who knows? Maybe for old age.
Yeah, 70 years old. He's getting up there. So I think he did his time.
Okay. So just to clarify, so what this means is, so if it's half the diamonds, we don't know. Let's say they're worth $10 million, or I guess if they include the actual big diamond, it could be most of the $20 million. So essentially, the bulk of the diamonds essentially are still floating around out there.
From what I've read and from what I've led to believe, they've never really been returned. But as it stands right now, at least in the most recent material written about the Blue Diamond Affair that I could find, the Saudi Arabia is sort of softening its stance on this, despite the jewels never being found, because of Iran's increasingly lucrative trade relationship with Thailand. And once your sort of economic competitors start muscling in on your territory, you want to sort of make sure you don't fall behind. So it seems that this is sort of quietly eventually going to be forgotten about. And, we're back where we started.
I'm kind of surprised. I'm kind of surprised the Thai government hasn't agreed to some type of settlement or payoff, and I wonder if that could be happening in the background. I mean, so let's suppose only $5 million worth of gems were actually returned.
Okay,
and so that means the Saudis are out $15 million. Now, $15 million is a lot of money. Thailand, of course, is a developing country. We can't say it's like a wealthy country. It's developing. But still, for the Thai government, $15 million is not that much money. It's really not for the Thai government. And obviously they could work on some kind of settlement. They wouldn't necessarily have to pay $15 million. So I suspect, as someone who has studied politics for more than 30 years, I've been studying politics, I suspect that some money could have changed hands, and the Thai government doesn't want to admit fault. And so publicly they're not going to admit that they made some payments. I personally wouldn't be surprised if there was some payments made to smooth this thing over.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. But like what you said at the beginning of the show, I think the sticking point would probably be the blue diamond itself. That's like stealing the Hope diamond. Like
right, exactly.
Anonymous diamonds are replaceable, and if you're a billionaire, you're not going to miss $20 million being stolen. But if one of them or several of them are rare or special or unique or singular, then that might be a sticking point. So
yeah. Now I don't know. I know very little about diamonds. So if you have this incredibly rare giant diamond, it obviously can't be easy to sell it on the black market. And obviously, if you own it, you can't walk around wearing it. So I wonder if it's likely that big diamonds like that get broken down. Like, I don't know if you end up losing value by breaking it down into many diamonds, or does it gain value if you break it down into many? I have no idea.
That's something that's come up in movies like Snatch. And I think
right.
A couple of James Bond movies, this sort of like.
That's where I get my knowledge of diamonds. Right. That's all. That's all I know about diamonds. I don't know anything else about diamonds.
Yeah, Frankie Two Fingers and his team. But yeah, man, it's kind of a crazy story, and it's nuts that it's 30 years later, and diplomatic relations between Saudi Arabia and Thailand are still strained. So it's one of those crazy stories that sort of just makes up the fabric of Bangkok.
Well, if there's any story worthy of a movie, that's got to be the story. I mean, I guess maybe it would be tough to have a movie because we don't know what the resolution to the diamonds are. I suppose you could fictionalize it partially, but that story is definitely worthy of a movie.
Yeah, no doubt. And as you can imagine, the story, like we said before, the story is so full of twists and turns and different people that it's hard to cover every detail. So if you want to learn more, Google is your friend. There have been several long-form stories written about the Blue Diamond Affair, as well as old stories in Khalsad, the Bangkok Post, and The Nation that you can still find online. So cool. Read more about it. There's a few things we left out, and it just gets more interesting as time goes on.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or leave, where one of us surprises the other guy with a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we then discuss and decide if it's something that we love about living here, loathe about living here, or hate so much that it makes us want to leave forever. And this week, it is my turn.
I'm ready.
All right, Ed, this happens to me a lot, and I assume it happens to you too. What do you think when you go up to 7-Eleven or something, and you buy your thing, and they say, "Are you a member of this club? Do you want this card?" "No, thank you." And you go to the next store. "Are you a member of this thing? Do you want this card?" And you go to the next store. It seems like every store you go to has a special membership program you need to sign up for, carry a card around, and it just gets really annoying to be asked at almost every single transaction at every single store if you're a member of the rewards program.
I'm very glad you mentioned this. No one else has mentioned this to me. I loathe this. I specifically find this really annoying. Like, it's in a way it's kind of sad because all of the discount programs and benefit programs and the little stamps they give you from 7-Eleven, like, right, or the Starbucks membership thing. Like, if I actually kept track of all that stuff, I might be a wealthy man today. Like, I don't know, but I detest. I can't. I literally am an absent-minded professor, for real. It's not like a metaphor. I am an absent-minded professor, and I can never keep track of the cards, the stamps, like the little coupons. I can't keep track of all that stuff. And so I just detest it. So like at 7-Eleven, when they give you the actual stamps, like if you buy a certain amount of money, they hand you like these stamps. I just immediately throw them away. And at Villa, they're always like, "Are you a member?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not a member." I've been saying no for 20 years. Like, I'm not a member. Like,
yeah,
like
exactly.
I've probably lost. I think if you're a member, you get like a 2% discount or something like that.
Yeah.
So like I'm in the wrong. Like, of course I should become a member of the Villa Club and like the Tops Club. Like, these are places I've been shopping for 18 years. It's probably good business to do this, but I find it annoying. I can't keep track of it. My life is already too busy.
Yeah, me too. And I'm the same way. And it's not the fact that I can't keep track of all these things. It's if I got a card from every one of these retailers, I'd be walking around like Santa Claus all the time, carrying a sack full of plastic cards over my shoulder that I'd have to dig through every time I went to some random store. You have to carry around 50 credit cards basically.
Agreed.
And then when you go up to the register, you're like flipping through it all, looking for the one thing to save, like 30 baht or something like that.
Agreed.
So I would pay the 2% that I would save on groceries to avoid having to lug all these stupid plastic cards around. So I think I break even.
Agree 100%. I loathe it. I detest it. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, loathe for me is too, as well.
Anyway, so as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to David Lukens for lending us his support at the T-shirt level. And Greg, what did you find out about David?
Well, you remember Stuart McDonald from Travelfish, who has been on the show a few times in the past.
I do.
A great guy. And he runs a really awesome site called Travelfish with a gang of very capable writers all over Southeast Asia, and they write about travel. Well, one of them is a great guy named David Lukens, who I've hung out with a number of times. David travels around Thailand a lot. He's always on some beach or some mountain or some little town somewhere, which is great. I like following his little adventures. However, I've started to notice a pattern, and it seems that in many of the locations he goes to, there are always reports of visits from ghosts, spirits, or demons a few weeks after he leaves.
Whoa.
Some of which we've talked about in previous shows. Yeah. So I read his reports from the road a little bit closer, and it occurred to me that as a white guy tracking down little-known places or exploring the backwoods areas, he's likely been traipsing through jungle and taking shortcuts through coconut plantations and the like. So I believe that he's often mistaken for a ghost or a spirit by superstitious locals.
Ah.
You see where I'm going? So my advice, David, is to stick to the main roads, buddy. I think you're scaring people. You might also try wearing one of those orange hunter's jackets or something, just so you don't freak everyone out. And maybe we'll make you a special shirt because you support us at the T-shirt level. We'll make you a special orange Bangkok podcast T-shirt that you can wear so people don't get scared.
Good idea. I think he has been freaking people out apparently.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the support, man. We really appreciate it, and look forward to giving you your shirt, hopefully in person at a Starbucks pretty soon.
Cool. As we close up, I'd like to give a special thanks to all of our patrons like David who are listening now. As everyone knows, we don't run ads or have sponsors, so we really, really do appreciate the support we get from our patrons. And if you want to get in touch with us, it's easy. Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We always write back. If you write it, we will answer it.
True that. You can also find us online, where we post each episode and carry on conversations with our listeners. You can also reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I'm BKK Greg. So thank you very much for listening, everyone, and we'll see you back here next week. Yeah, that's a very good. Yeah, that's a very good. I can't even think of what I'm saying. Fuck, I need that coffee, man.